You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we're playing Second Banana in Fab Facts.
There are some spooky goings-on in the Randomiser.
and I'm back with a new interview. It's Toby Hadoke
That's all coming up in Banana 153.
of the Banana Anderson Banana Cast.
1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
I feel like that might have been a bit of a slip up.
Yeah. Do you think, I found it quite appealing.
Oh, I think people might think it a trifle strange.
I think you'll find it was the best of the bunch.
Don't know
I
how
win.
to. You do win.
I win.
I mean, I think I was on thin ice with trifle, to be honest, because I'm not sure you put banana in a trifle. You can have banana trifle.
Of course you
Anyway,
can.
look, this is actually a podcast about the world of Gerry Anderson. I don't know why we started talking about bananas. I'm so sorry. Thunderbird 4's yellow. Maybe that's the reason. But
could be that.
No, look, I am Jamie Anderson. That fellow you can hear talking any second is Richard James.
Yes, that's me. Hello.
Yes, and over there, silent but deadly, is Chris Dale.
Pardon? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, deadly
sure
because because of his Anderson knowledge, and he's like the sort of Anderson assassin, I'd say.
Okay.
Do you think?
I think you probably just about got away
Anderson
with it.
analysis assassin, the AAA triple threat, Chris Dale.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Fine. Yeah.
He'll be here later on with his highly popular and award-winning, according to me, that is, Randomiser. Where he'll pick a random Gerry Anderson episode and tell you all about it and give his witty and highly thoughtful and incisive observations.
Yes, he will.
But there are many other things that happen in this podcast, such as these following items listed for you now by Richard James.
We've got Fab Facts coming up in just a moment, whereby Jamie will offer me a fantastic fact from his book of Fab Facts, and I will judge whether it's fab or not. Ooh. We've got some news from the Gerry Anderson universe coming up, because as we know, there's brand new stuff happening right now. We've got our Podsterons who've been sending in emails, they've been tweeting us, and they've been posting on our Facebook group. And finally, we've got part one of my interview with the wonderful Toby Hadoke, who I know you will know from his Doctor Who associations, but also has a thing or two to say about Gerry Anderson.
And Space Precinct.
Yes, quite right.
Can't wait for that.
No, so much coming up.
What a stonking list of content. And would you believe we do that every week? So,
I know, without fail.
If it's your first time to this podcast, please do bear with us. We do come up with some interesting Anderson content, and I assure you, you will find something to enjoy in the next 90 minutes or so.
It's not always about bananas.
It's never about bananas.
No,
but
just to make that clear.
If this is your first time listening, welcome along. You are now an official Podsteron, so thank you, Podsteron, for joining us. That's because you're a podcast listener, and we've derived that term from Mistrons, and we did it all the way back in, I don't know, Pod 11 or something, or maybe earlier than that. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
So welcome to the ranks of the Podsterons. Here comes the first bit of interesting content. I use interesting very loosely as a word.
Possible sense.
Thank you, Richard. It's Fab Facts.
Hooray!
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Fab Facts, now in its 130th edition. It's we started this with Simon Archer's wonderful book of Fab Facts, and later moved on to our very own extended edition of Fab Facts. What happens is this: I've got a book of Fab Facts. Here it is. And I will... That was a quick flick there. I'm going to flick through a bit more slowly than that. At a random point during the flicking, Richard will shout the word fab, which is my cue to stop flicking. At that point, I will open the page fully and read to you a fab fact, and Richard and you, Podsteron, will decide whether or not this is indeed fab. Okay.
Yeah.
Richard, are you ready with your fab?
I am.
Podsteron, are you ready with your ears?
Yes.
Excellent. Here comes the flick.
Fab!
Oof. Gosh, okay.
Yep.
Well,
Come on then.
I've already convinced you're going to find this one to be a fab fact.
Right.
But let's see. We've spoken before about the various cast changes in UFO. and how if you watch the show in production order, half the cast disappear after episode 17.
Yes, that's true.
Because of the studio move and the pause in production, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Also, we've covered quite recently the unfortunate politics by which George Sewell, that's Alec Freeman, was let go from the show to be replaced by Wanda Ventham as Colonel Virginia Lake.
Yep.
Freeman obviously wasn't the only character the show lost around that time. Keith Ford, Gay Ellis, Lou Waterman, and more all just vanished because the actors who played them were busy doing other things and weren't able to return for episode 18 onwards. So, some replacements had to be found to fill certain vital roles in the show. While in some cases it was easier to fill roles with existing characters such as Aisha Bruff filling in for Lieutenant Ford at Shadow HQ or Nina Barry filling in for Gay Ellis on Moonbase, for the role of Shadow's second-in-command it was felt that perhaps a brand new character would be needed. Obviously, from the existing cast of returning characters, Paul Foster would perhaps be the obvious choice for Shadow's second-in-command, but as we know, he was a relatively recent recruit to the organisation, so perhaps it was felt that within the world of the show, he wasn't quite senior enough.
Okay.
So, the search was on to find a replacement for Alec Freeman, and meanwhile, scripts were being written with either Freeman still present or just a generic second-in-command role until a new actor or actress could be arranged.
Right.
The idea of that second-in-command character being a woman, which was quite a bold move for a show of that time, even for an Anderson show, seems to have come from Ed Bishop himself.
Ah.
Now, whether or not he specifically suggested Wanda Ventham is a little unclear. He says he did, and he says he didn't, depending on which interview you read.
Right.
But he certainly took credit for suggesting the idea that it should be filled by a woman. Regardless of how it came about, Wanda Ventham eventually became one of the two candidates for the role, the other being a male actor by the name of Gary Raymond. Without actually knowing they were going up for the same job, Wanda and Gary were actually interviewed for the second-in-command role on the same day. And oddly enough, Wanda had been to drama school with Gary's wife. Small world.
Yes.
Now, we know how things went from there. Wanda was hired as the new second-in-command. She reprised her role of Virginia Lake from the first episode, and because many stations and networks back in the 1970s showed the series in a largely random order, it was never obvious that she wasn't meant to be a main character right from the start.
Sure.
So obviously, Wanda was happy because she got to be on the show. Ed was happy because he really came to enjoy the relationship between Straker and Lake. And poor old Gary Raymond, well, as they say in game shows, he didn't go away empty-handed.
Right.
As his consolation prize, something quite rare in the entertainment industry, he still got to play his role of Shadow's second-in-command in the episode The Man Who Came Back as Colonel John Grey.
Okay.
So the next time you watch The Man Who Came Back and wonder who on earth this John Grey bloke is who suddenly turned up and is telling everyone what to do and why he's getting so much screen time, just remember that he could have actually been a new regular character as second-in-command of Shadow. So there you go.
How interesting. Yes. Okay, I like that.
So it is quite rare that you... I mean, how often, Richard James, have you been up for a role and they've said, actually, no, but we're going to bring you in to play a different iteration of the same role for one episode as a consolation prize? That never happens, does it?
No, of course it doesn't. No, that's
There you
right.
go.
Yeah, I like it.
So Gary could have been, let's say, Virgil Lake. How would that have been?
Yeah. Yeah. That would work.
I mean, I'm just making that up now. Actually,
Why
obviously,
not?
it would have been John Grey. But yeah, so there you go. That could have been a very, very different universe. But I love how forward-thinking the show was, the team were, and Ed was too. To be
Yes.
saying, let's
Yeah.
have a female second-in-command. Come on. I mean, this is set in
Absolutely.
1980. We know how forward-thinking the world is going to be by 1980. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice idea.
Yeah, it was, yeah. A bit ahead of its time. Yeah.
There you go.
That's good.
But a lovely thought, and I'm so glad it worked that well because she was great, and still is. What a lovely lady Wanda is. Anyway, Richard James, anything else you wish to add before we bring this Fab Fact to a close?
No, I was sufficiently satisfied
Oh, okay.
by the
Well,
fabness of that fact.
thank you very much. I'm really glad to hear you thought that was fab. So that is the end of this week's Banana
Sufficiently
Fact.
satisfactory fact. Okay.
Well-
Well, how was that a banana fact?
Second banana.
Second
fact.
banana.
That was the
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Second banana. I see.
Okay. Anyway, what else have you got
Yes.
for us today other than
Very
totally mismatched ends of Fab Facts?
Well, now, our lovely Podsterons have been emailing us into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Anthony, for example, says, Dear Rich and Jamie, I recently purchased the DVD of Crossroads to Crime, and I think the best part is the cast interview slagging it off. Truly, I've never seen anyone hoping that it was burnt or remained lost, except for Terence Dick's exclamation on the finding of Moonbase 3 from Doctor Who. Anyway, he says, I'm intrigued to watch You've Never Seen This, as the YouTube clip with the lady writing with 10 fingers of chalk is decidedly creepy. Still, it might make for a t-shirt one day, he suggests. I did come across a listing for the BBC Radio Play sitcom of Two Doors Down, which is set in Belfast and apparently stars Gerry Anderson as himself and a neighbour. I was just wondering if you had any further information or stories about this. Thanks for such entertaining podcasts and rapid-fire quips. And that's from Anthony. Well, it's a different Gerry Anderson, of course.
Yes.
I'm assuming if it's a sitcom set in Belfast on the radio...
It's the Northern Irish one.
The Northern Irish radio presenter and I think comedian Gerry Anderson. So, yeah, there we are. Different one entirely. Terry from Hereford got in touch to say, can you tell me the significance of the number 45 to Gerry Anderson?
I cannot, Terry. Did he provide an answer?
Luckily, he did.
Oh.
In Roman numerals, 45 is XL5.
Oh, XLV.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Good enough. Chris got in touch. Hi, Jamie and Richard. I would like to thank you both, Richard and Chris, once again, for a continuous and consistently excellent podcast. Gerry Anderson Day was fabtastic, and I hope that it will be a permanent event forevermore. Congratulations on what was an excellent celebrational tribute to Gerry's career. I have a few Space 1999 and Gerry Anderson related questions that I hope you may be able to answer. Firstly, quite a few podcasts back, you mentioned that a new Space 1999 book was coming out by Marcus Hearn entitled Space 1999 The Vault. As I haven't heard any more news of this new book, can you tell me if it's still planned for release? Also, on the subject of books, do you know if there are any plans to publish a new and up-to-date biography on Gerry's life and career? I've read a few books about Gerry and Thunderbirds specifically, but not an authorised and up-to-date biography. I'm sure I speak for all the Podsterons when I say that this would be an absolute must to have. Keep up the excellent work, chaps. Take care, from Chris. So
The Vault was delayed.
Yep.
I suspect if it's going to appear, and I believe it is, that it may be later this year, but that's all I can say on that. And as for a biography, it's certainly something which is being actively discussed currently because it seems like a good time to look at it. But as you may be aware, there's quite a lot of active projects going on. So
just a few.
There aren't that many of us at Anderson Entertainment right now, anyway. So yes, we will get there in due course, I hope. Fingers crossed.
Hi, Podmasters, says Stephen. I'm not famous, except in my own mind, but after your Ed Fact in Pod 151, it reminded me of a time around the late 90s. I'd been interviewed at home by BBC Countryfile, and a week or two later, my brother was installing a TV, his job at the time, at a customer's house. He said, I'll just tune the channels for you, got to the BBC, and blurted out, wow, it's my brother, as my Countryfile episode was being broadcast right at that very moment, showing my small segment of the programme. A spooky coincidence there. That's it, he says. Cheers, Stephen.
Oh, well, it's still, relevant-ish.
Absolutely. Ian says, I thought you might be interested in this wonderful cross-sections book. And he posted a picture to us as well. He said, I picked it up a couple of months back in a local charity shop for the princely sum of £1. I love hearing what people pick up in charity shops. That's fantastic. Ian continues, a couple of quick questions for Richard. Why was Space Precinct dubbed? And do any of the original studio sound recordings exist, i.e. with the actors' original voices? Why it was dubbed? I mean, that's the question, isn't it? There's all sorts of answers to that. Firstly, I think the American producers were worried about the English accents. They were worried about the noise of the servos in the creatures' heads. And I think they were a little concerned that there was no sort of continuity of accent among the cast and guest artistes. So it was sort of a blanket policy, really. And there is a small clip on one of the DVDs, I think, from an episode, one of my scenes, in fact, which features my voice pre-dubbing. So if you want to hear that, pick up the DVD box set. And finally, for now, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Phil Steer is taking you to task.
Oh, I was looking forward to being taken to task by someone. Thank goodness it's Phil Steer.
Phil says, hi all, quick question. What happened to the 60-second video messages that you requested for International Gerry Anderson Day? I wasn't expecting my message to be used, but I didn't see any from anyone. I'd be keen to hear what Joe 90 would find out. He says, is it a job for Joe 90? Joe, we need you to go undercover at Anderson Entertainment and discover who it is that is preventing these messages being released to the public. We're giving you the brain pattern of someone who knows their way around the place, someone who used to go there each week with his band to play the theme tune to Fab Facts. He's not happy about being dropped from the show, so he's only too happy to help. Many thanks for the show and stay safe. Best wishes, Phil Steer.
Well, Phil Steer, yes, this is the Phil Steer segment of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Yes.
So I asked for messages. My aim was that we would have maybe 20 or 30 and have like a mega cut of all the lots of people saying, hello, I'm blah, hello, blah, happy Gerry Anderson Day, I love it. So it was a real kind of nice repeating segment. Now, we actually only received 7 messages.
Oh, well, there you go.
Which were not...
You're not going to send them in.
No, they were not sufficient to cut together this particular project, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's why. So that's all right. Don't
of course it is. Yeah.
It was a little nice idea. Sometimes these things don't work out. But thank you to those of you who did send in a message. We really appreciated it. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah. Fair enough. All for now, but do send in your emails to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk and I shall endeavour to read them out next time.
I can't wait. But I'll have to. But what we don't have to wait for is the Gerry Anderson news.
Oh, is it right here, right now?
Now. It's the Gerry Anderson news. I joined in with you there, see? Yeah, it's quite nice joining in. I won't do it again, though. Here we go. Let's start with this, then. Let's start with an upcoming teaser for Thunderbirds Terror from the Stars. As you know, the first of our new audiobook releases around Thunderbirds is coming to CD and download. CD courtesy of the Gerry Anderson store, and hardback too, and download via bigfinish.com. And very soon, coming this week, we should have a lovely new teaser for you.
Oh!
It's going to be a good, I'd say, 4 or 5 minutes. So you'll get a really good flavour of what things are like, what the music's like, what the sound design's like, what the voices are like. I'm very excited, and I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it. We are hard at work recording more audiobooks for you in the background. We've just been doing some rather exciting casting of some new voices for some old heroes who I think you're going to love.
Yeah.
And we'll have more on that in the coming weeks. Now, I think after the excitement of that, you'll need a tea break or a coffee break. So what better way to do that than with your Gale Myers Co. Mugs and coasters, which are still available for now from the Gerry Anderson store, but they are a fixed amount of stock and they're selling pretty quick. So if you want to get yourself a set, it's a great gift for yourself or for a loved one. Something subtle and mid-century design appealing for Thunderbird fans and possibly just fans of mid-century design alike. As you may know, there are some ongoing production and shipping issues, especially from China. If you combine Brexit, COVID and the Suez Canal blockage, it's amazing what a knock-on effect that sort of thing has, and it really does push things back by weeks or often months. So there are delays around 1612 and Big Chief pre-orders as far as we are aware. Now, those are outside of our control, and we'll do our best to keep you as updated as possible. But I just wanted you to know that we are doing what we can to mitigate those effects for stuff that Anderson Entertainment is producing for the Gerry Anderson store. So as much as possible, we are manufacturing the UK. Where we can't, we're manufacturing in Europe. And where we can't do that, we're manufacturing as close to home as possible to avoid these shipping delays. But it's a tough new world currently. And although your local supermarket is going to be pretty good at bringing stuff in and keeping you stocked up, the more specialist the item, the bigger the impact on the delays and stuff. So thank you for bearing with us. If you have any queries, just email support@gerryanderson.co.uk and the team will do their best to answer your question and make sure you are satisfied. If you have some feedback for us about content, that's any content that we create, whether it's on YouTube, things like Networks, Gerry Anderson Night In, even the podcast, we would love to hear from you. What would you like to hear more of?
Oh, yeah.
What would you like to hear less of? Maybe Richard James? No, I'm only kidding. I couldn't possibly say that sort of thing. But yes, any content suggestions, we'd be really, really happy to hear them. If you could send them in to feedback@gerryanderson.co.uk, that's feedback@gerryanderson.co.uk. We'll collate those and see what you want out there. What do you, Podsteron, want from the worlds of Gerry Anderson that we put out for free? let us know. And also, if there's something you're really desperate to see as a physical media release or a digital release, maybe Space Precinct on Blu-ray, not Space Precinct on ice, Richard, that kind of thing, then let us know and we'll look into it. The more emails we get, the better, and it'll help us as we go forward. So, I think that's it for this week's Gerry Anderson news. Yeah, it is.
That was the news. That was the news.
It certainly was.
Wasn't it, though? Every week. News every week.
I know. I'm still waiting for that week where we just play the piano version of Marina instead of the news when it's a quiet week. But it hasn't happened yet in 153 pods.
Not happened yet. No, that's true. Now, are you on Facebook? And if you are, why are you not a part of our Facebook group?
Oh, that's
why? Why, oh, why? It's quite easy. Just go to facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, answer some questions, and we'll let you in. For example, Rob Doyle has posted, I just finished the pilot of Four Feather Falls. Yes, he's continuing his watching of the first episode of each series. He says it's aptly named How It Began. Not bad at all. You can see a vast improvement on Torchy the Battery Boy. The western sets are really beautiful. The waterfall scene in particular. We're introduced to most of the main characters and Tex's magic feathers are explained. What's not explained are the puppets of Dusty, I Am a Dog, Honest, and Grandpa, who looks like he came from one of the underwater kingdoms in Stingray. 6 out of 10 for the pilot, he says.
Yeah.
I think that's a bit harsh, isn't it? But
It's a little bit harsh, but, you know, I mean, it's 1959. What do you expect?
yes. True. Well, Miles Parrish says, I don't think that... I know, he's been watching Captain Scarlet. He says, I don't think the music for this scene from Place of Angels was composed specifically for it, but gosh darn, every note from the time Mr. On Judy Chapman drives up to the research centre to after the guard meets his untimely end and the vault of chemical weapons opens is so perfectly suited for the action on screen and makes it even more chilling. 10 out of 10 for the music editing from Barry Gray and 10 out of 10 for the direction from Leo Eaton. Incidentally, being a 1992 kid, stuff like this gives such an interesting take on the Cold War that you don't get from history books. Imagine the creation of a chemical weapon by the ostensibly good guys being a plot point on TV now. Well, yeah, good point. That is interesting. Did Barry Gray write his music to the pictures, or were the pictures created and the music chosen to just lay over the top?
Both.
Ah,
So Barry created quite a library of music, and a lot of the time he'd go, "Oh, I've already done something that will work for this."
Yeah.
Probably not exactly that delivery, but some of the stuff will get reused. And other times he would create new stuff that was cut exactly to pictures. So a great combination. That's why you'll hear cues from Fireball XL5 and Stingray turning up in Thunderbirds and Joe 90, and even right through to Space 1999 and UFO sometimes.
yeah, great. Finn Jackson says, finally getting around to the 50th anniversary Thunderbirds episodes. Oh, yeah, great fun. I kind of wish they'd do a similar treatment to the Captain Scarlet mini records because they've gone and done a great job, in my opinion, recreating the original show. And it'd be cool to see that talent applied to stories like Captain Scarlet versus Captain Black. But, he says, that's just a thought. Yes, wouldn't it, Finn? I agree. Jenny Davies says, hello, fellow Podsterons. Now, I wanted to read this one out because it just gives you an example. We often talk about our wonderful community on our Podsterons Facebook group, and Jenny's written, hello, fellow Podsterons. I thought I'd show you my new angel look. On Thursday, 29th of April, 2021, I cut 12 inches off my hair to give to the Little Princess Trust, where they make hair into wigs for children who have lost theirs due to cancer and other illnesses. And this is the second time I've cut my hair to give it to the charity, the first time being about 4 years ago. What a lovely, thoughtful thing to do, isn't it? That's
Amazing. Yeah, well done, Jenny. That's brilliant.
And also, there have been several posts on the Facebook group about earthquake acting, which I know we all love. It's when you're watching those sci-fi series and the earth shakes or the spaceship gets rocked and the cast have to fling themselves around the set. So he says, further to the comments about the earthquake acting in Space 1999, I thought I'd nick a gimmick I've seen on YouTube and stabilise some of the said shots to remove, as far as possible, the camera shake and reveal what it actually looked like to anyone in the studio when the scenes were shot. Silly and pointless, but it makes me laugh. Quite right too. So do pop over to our Facebook group and have a look at that. It's an hilarious video of Martin Landau and the rest of the cast throwing themselves around the set. It's
Brilliant.
good fun. Yeah. So there we go. Join in our Facebook group. What have you got to lose?
A couple of hours if you go down the rabbit hole, I suppose. But otherwise,
that's it though.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Nice people there.
No.
Lovely Podsterons.
Yeah.
Be one of them.
Exactly. Yeah. All for now. More next week.
Great. Well, Richard, I know that you've just done all that reading out of things.
Yeah.
And I know that recently you've done quite a few interviews and stuff, but
Yes.
I did fancy a break. I'm a bit worried that you're out of my job, But
Well, you say that. Yeah.
oh, right, okay.
Okay.
Well,
Right,
look,
but you go and have some time off.
Yeah,
No, that's fine. You go and
you do this
go
one.
rest your weary head. Yeah,
I will,
That's fine.
thank you.
Go on. That's all right, Jamie. You're listening to the Richard James podcast. And I'd like to introduce you to my good friend Toby Hadoke. And now, Toby, I know you will know from his association with Doctor Who and his many podcasts of his own that he produces about the series. Oh, you're still here. Sorry.
Sorry, I woke up, yes.
Thought you'd gone to lie down.
All right, I'm going again.
Well, I spoke to Toby about his childhood, growing up watching Gerry Anderson programmes too, and the memories that stuck in his head, and he had many thoughts to share.
Is that it? Are you done now?
Yeah,
Do you
well,
want to
over to Toby.
Oh, right.
Go and lie down.
All right.
Over
bye.
to Toby. So, Toby Hadoke, you're known as an actor, a stand-up, writer, podcaster, but perhaps mostly to fans of sci-fi as a lover of and chronicler of all things Doctor Who. But for now, welcome to the Gerry Anderson podcast.
It's nice to be here moonlighting.
Is that how it feels?
Well, yeah, I mean, it feels like I'm sort of a fifth columnist consorting with the enemy.
So, Toby, let's talk a little bit. What was your sort of, it's a rather pompous phrase, what was the cultural landscape you found yourself in growing up as a young boy? What were you watching and reading and listening to and so on?
Well, you see, I was sort of born in the wrong place, which kind of helped me discover my love for the things that I love, because I was born in the countryside in the middle of nowhere. And I was the youngest of four, and there was not a very big gap between the top three, and then a bit of a gap between me. And then my dad walked out when I was about 4. So I was sort of left to my own devices and we didn't have much money, but we did have a lot of books, including a lot of Doctor Who books. So I was sort of bored and left to my own devices and found these books on the shelves. And there was a telly up at our end of the house. So that's where I sort of, saw a lot of, if there was any sort of fantasy stuff on, which I sort of gravitated towards. But it was very much through that sort of archaeological looking at Doctor Who. And also because my mum was quite liberal in the sense that we were allowed to stay up quite late and we were allowed to watch adult programs. I remember a friend coming round and being shocked, a work colleague of my mum's being quite shocked because he came round and The Young Ones was on. And I mean, I didn't understand an awful lot of it, but I was allowed to be exposed to it. And actually, there was a period where my bedroom was on a sort of balcony that was attached to the main telly room. So I had to go to bed, and everyone else there was not a wall between me and where everyone was watching the telly. So by osmosis, I think I got 12 Angry Men and hear all these sort of sweaty actors shouting at each other and thinking, wow, that sounds really exciting. But my first experience of it was it sort of coming over my sort of my bedroom, it's balcony, as it were.
Yeah, interesting.
So it was all sort of I was the sort of magpie picking things up.
Yeah.
But probably a bit older than stuff intended for me.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I have a very distinct memories of being allowed to stay up on a Friday night to watch Starsky and Hutch, which I suspect was on after the news. Now, the news then was on at 9 o'clock on the BBC. So that's like going to bed at 10:15 on a Friday night after Starsky and Hutch.
Well, and what happened after all my brothers and sisters got a bit older, because my mum didn't have any money and had to go back to work, and my dad had been a doctor, so a medical charity offered to pay to send me to the local boarding school because she couldn't drive me in and out of work. So I wasn't private school material, as it were, from that background. But I was funded to sort of go there. So I would mostly so that she didn't have to come and pick me up and take me to and from school, and wasn't a school bus at that point because we were so far in the middle of nowhere. So then I came back on Saturday during the day and went back on Sunday night. So I only watched television on Saturday night. And I think out of pity, because I was such I watched from that BBC One, we watched, there was Bergerac, and then we switched over for Auf Wiedersehen Pet, and I stayed up and watched Spitting Image, and, stayed up till goodness knows when, because that was my very small period of being able to watch telly. So of course then when Doctor Who moved from Saturday to midweek, I missed it. And for one season I made a friend of mine tell me what was on, and then the local vicar took pity and he videoed Doctor, because he was the one person that had a video.
Wow.
So my Sunday was spent being driven to the local vicar's and having tea with him and being able to watch the 2 episodes of Doctor Who from that week.
Great.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. And was it Doctor Who really then that kind of, was that the gateway to your TV viewing? Was that, or was there something before that really piqued your interest?
I think my earliest memory is, and this is where older brothers and sisters come into it, is of episode 1 of The Invisible Enemy. And I remember one of my brothers saying, "Oh, this is where their faces turn furry." And I thought much later, how did he know that? Because it's the beginning of episode 1, so it's not a cliffhanger. And it's because it was repeated. It was repeated in the summer or a couple. So my earliest memory is the repeat of episode 1 of The Invisible Enemy. And I think because I'd got old, and it was a time when everybody watched Doctor Who, and Doctor Who was part of the sort of cultural landscape. And because they'd already got the books because they were a bit older than me. And as my brother said to me recently, he said, we like Doctor Who, but we grew up.
Right, it's one way of putting it. Yeah.
So, if I said to my brother now, Pyramids of Mars, he'd be able to probably tell me some stuff about it, even though he doesn't watch Doctor Who. And I remember being pretty hooked from that early, and I would scour the shelves for Doctor Who books. And then I got Doctor Who A Celebration, that Peter Haining book, which was the 20th anniversary when I was, 9, which was the ultimate time to suddenly discover there's a bigger history than those handful of Target books. You kind of guessed because you knew that there were previous Doctors. And we had a thing called the Doctor Who Monster book that I would sometimes find on a shelf. That was like a sort of gateway drug. But if you've got a slightly, again, a sort of magpie mind that likes finding things out, suddenly a 20-year history is just that isn't unlike the kids today where you can just press a button on the internet. You had to sort of just find old copies of the Radio Times and flick through them and hope you found a picture and all that sort of thing. So that was my childhood then, was looking for clues about Doctor Who.
Yeah, and broader, I mean, were you also interested in the other sort of sci-fi offerings at the time, the tripods of Blake 7 and things like that? Or was it that not naturally a given that you would watch those just because you watched Doctor Who?
Well, Blake 7, yes, because it was grown up and people wore leather and snogged each other and it seemed quite, crikey. It seemed so grown up, Blake 7. The tripods, yes, and I got quite into the tripods and I got the books. And I very much like those. And we watched the Anderson stuff that was on that had periods of being on. I mean, anything that I slightly resented, I think, Star Trek, because it seemed to me to be more mainstream, or it was cooler with the school kids, as it were. I don't know. So, for some reason, it seemed more acceptable. And that would automatically make me go, well, take a step back from it. I didn't want to like the thing that everybody else liked. And yet I've just said 5 minutes ago, everybody liked Doctor Who. But I was in it. My growing up with Doctor Who was a curious period where it went from being that thing that everybody loved at the 20th anniversary and part of the furniture to only 2 or 3 years later being a bit of a joke that everyone thought was awful, which shows a great change in attitude or a massive mismanagement of a product. You decide.
Yes, we'll leave that there. Then where did the worlds of Anderson fit into this? What were your first memories of watching Gerry Anderson productions? And
well, I think it was, and I've listened to your podcast, and I've listened to Nick Briggs and Benji the other day, and I think it was Jamie actually being very cruel about Joe 90, which I haven't seen since. That was I think that was my first.
Right.
What channel would that have been on?
Well, that would have been ITV, your local ITV region. That would have been the repeats during the 70s, I'm guessing then, wouldn't it? Late 70s?
I would think I would have been very little, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Thunderbirds, I seem to recall, was on during the mornings at weekends.
Right.
Was it? Is that right?
Possibly, yeah, quite possibly.
And I remember thinking how clever it was. It's amazing because I think really early on, I was obviously interested in how stuff was made and how you made the fantastical realistic. And I always got bothered when Doctor Who, when I looked at a bad effect and thought my friends could mock it. So I remember watching Thunderbirds and thinking how whoever had the idea of doing the close-up of actual hands was a genius, because I just thought, oh, well, of course you would, because you don't have to show the puppet, because you can just have a hand and so I always had that kind of eye on stuff. So I definitely watched the Thunderbirds when it was on at the weekends. And then I remember watching my nan's watching a Captain Scarlet and being shocked at how violent that was. I remember some people getting shot by a machine gun in a pre-credit sequence and a woman dying. And thinking, I'm sure people didn't die like this in Thunderbirds. But they even repeated Fireball XL5. I remember watching that too.
Right.
So I was always on the lookout for that sort of thing.
Okay, yes.
And Terrorhawks. And I remember again, thinking it quite neat that they did the noughts and crosses thing in the
that's
clip.
right. That's right.
And that Windsor Davis, who was the Sergeant Major in It Ain't Half Up Man, was the Sergeant Major in Terrorhawks, which I thought was but I missed the last episode. And I remember my friend Ollie, who I always made tell me what happened in Doctor Who, told me that Tiger Neinstein had died. And that just seemed to me just impossible. But I still haven't seen that episode.
Really?
It's really weird how I would accept everyone in Blake 7 dying, and I thought that was thrilling. But the idea of killing off a puppet lead somehow seemed seemed particularly unpleasant.
Yeah. And did you do you remember noticing or thinking anything of the different puppets for Terrorhawks? Than because obviously he moved away from Super Marination towards Super Macronation, I think it was called. Glove puppets, essentially. Do you have any thoughts or memories of that?
Well, I think I remember that is it in Fireball XL5, because the black and white I think maybe showed the strings up a little bit more. Yeah. And so I think probably with Terrorhawks, I think the idea that you didn't have, it was a bit like bad CSO in Doctor Who. As a fan, you'd go, I hope they can get rid of that somehow. I guess watching Thunderbirds, my thought was, well, this would be so much better if they could get rid of the strings. Right. So Terrorhawk, I think my again, this sort of production eye I would have had on it would go, oh well, look, they've got rid of the strings. But I was certainly also more aware that it was of the more comedic tone. So remember, maybe my eye was less on at that point the technology than there was often an obvious shift that they were sort of bumbling comedy baddies. Yes. Whereas I think I was probably of an age where I liked things gritty and grown up. Fair enough. Because I don't know, there's a certain age you go through, doesn't it? When if your thing is grown up, it's somehow. The first question I used to ask people when I interviewed them was, "Do you think Doctor Who's a children's program?" And I'd hope they'd go, "Oh, definitely not," even though I was a child, because I didn't want my thing to be a children's program.
Yes.
Now I think, cling on to your childhood as long as you can. Don't try and be grown up.
They divide. You've mentioned two shows there that divide opinion. Joe 90, as you said, Jamie, and I think Nick Briggs and Benji Clifford are not too keen on, and Terrorhawks because it is so different. But likewise, Dick Spanner. Do you remember Dick Spanner? That was the short animated series.
Well, again, I remember it because I think I was at university when it was on. And I was just pleased any stuff like that was getting made, because obviously there was a period, and people forget in this age of Netflix and fantasy shows and Avengers movie franchises, anything vaguely fantastical was only consumed by, dyed-in-the-wool anoraks. Yeah. So anything where, and Dick Spanner was sort of slightly comedic and parodic. So I remember my student mates watching it, but I checked out a little bit of it recently because, again, I listened to Benji and Nick and
Jamie laying into it.
Absolutely horrible about it.
Yeah.
But I'd remembered it being sort of quite fun at the time. And there was a period when I was at university, which I was slightly uneasy with, where sort of genre stuff was a bit sort of retro cool, and people liked it, but they liked it because it was a bit naff, whereas deep down I was going, no, you've got to like it because it's good. I used to get very upset when people liked stuff. They looked at it, with a slightly arched eyebrow, whereas I still love that stuff. My love for this stuff has never been cynical.
So was there a moment where you looked at the screen and thought, well, I'd like a bit of that. I want to get into this world. I want to work in this world. How did that come about?
Well, I was stuck in the countryside in the middle of nowhere and didn't really have anybody to talk to. So I used to play, and and part of my play was to quote lines from Doctor Who stories I'd watched over and over again. And then that got in. And then when we did Shakespeare at school, I found saying those words were really, really invigorating. So that was my play, was to sort of act alone. But my problem was, the reason I think I got interested in the sort of behind the scenes side of ththings for a bit was because I had a very weak R. So my brothers used to take the mickey off me for sounding like Rick from The Young Ones.
Right.
I remember the South Bank show did a documentary on a composer, and I said, "Oh, can you video it for me?" Because he composed some Doctor Who, and my mum said, "Oh, what's he called?" And I sort of blushed because he was called Richard Rodney Bennett, and of course they all found that hilarious. So I thought I would never be able to be an actor because I I couldn't say my R's. As I got older, I think my mouth shape changed, and I worked on it as well. But funny enough, I've been looking at some actors I like very much recently, like David Collins and Derek Newark, who both have weak R's and both had to work quite hard to get rid of theirs, and they did okay. But it meant that I then, did a lot of reading with a view. I thought I wanted to become a director because I thought that was a way of having sort of, still a creative input. So from the year dot, I've never wanted to do anything else.
Yeah.
Writing came a bit later. I only ever wrote to facilitate performance. And ironically, it's the thing that I seem to keep getting asked to do. And I know people who would be desperate to have some of the opportunities I've had as a writer, who haven't had them. And comparatively, I've sort of walked into opportunities and I feel slightly guilty sometimes. But my mum's always said that she thinks writing is the thing I should concentrate on. But I always want to do the thing I'm not doing. So
sure. You said something very interesting in your current podcast series, Happy Times and Places, which is chronicling episodes of Doctor Who. Essentially, you sit down and watch and commentate upon them and give us some interesting stories and facts and figures and so on. And you said something that really stood out to me, that when you were growing up watching Doctor Who, it sometimes made you feel very angry.
Yeah, I think there's a lesson there in life, and I'm just trying to think what instance I was talking about. But I used to get cross with Doctor Who if I felt it would then get me some stick at school the following week. I don't know, but interesting. Which can you remember which one I was talking about?
Yeah. So you were watching Battlefield, and you were saying that you so wanted it to be good because you knew that if it wasn't, it would be taken away from you, and you'd get angry if you felt the series was letting itself down. And the reason I mention it is because various fans of various Gerry Anderson series may feel something similar about the progression of the techniques, or they may not see it as a progression from the Supermarination days through the live action and Terrorhawks and so on.
Well, I don't want to get too lofty, but I do think there's a lesson in life about, and I still need to learn it, about enjoying the present and not fixating on the past, which you can't change, and not thinking the worst of the future because it hasn't happened yet. But I think ever since Doctor Who was put on hiatus, because Doctor Who is the only constant in my life. So ever since it was put on hiatus, it lived in the shadow of being axed. And I didn't know what I'd do because it was the only thing that I had. Yeah, it did make me angry, and I was quite, I think I was affable in person, but inside, I would get furious with Doctor Who if it did. But again, and it's the other lesson is not worrying about what other people think as well, because it wasn't necessarily whether I liked it or not, but whether I thought that other people would. Right. So I was almost getting offended. It's like these people now who get offended on other people's behalfs. I would look at the pink phone box in the Happiness Patrol and think, well, my mate Steve at school is going to think that's pathetic, and that's going to reflect on me.
What a clever man,
Toby. Yes, well, isn't he? I mean, he's such a aficionado of cult TV and popular television culture. Yeah, really interesting to talk to him, and lovely to hear his thoughts.
Yeah, he's encyclopedic and fascinated with all things pop culture, and he's being fascinating and knowledgeable. He's basically everything we aspire to be and yet fail to manage to be.
I know, it's true, isn't it? Anyway, you can follow him on Twitter at Toby Hadoke, and tell him we said hello. I think we'll have part 2 next week.
We do more Toby Hadoke and more us feeling useless and rubbish next week. Thanks, Toby.
Yeah, thanks, Toby. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you wish to add, Richard James? Because I can see Chris is now eager to join us.
Oh, is he? Is he? Oh, yes. Right, okay. No, well, let's let Chris in, and I'll come back to read some tweets and some YouTube comments a little later.
Okay, Chris, it's time for you to shine with your lovely, shiny randomizer.
Well, I finally get to see you. You're a hard man to pin down.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry about that, Howard. Yes, please do sit down. Yes, I'm afraid the randomizer means I'm always very busy, you know. Now then, I gather you wanted to talk to me about the reviews the randomizer has been getting online recently. I must admit I've not seen any. Could you maybe give me an example?
The series is going to pot.
Oh.
The scripts are old and hackneyed. The entire production is lifeless and trite.
I see. Well, yes, that doesn't sound too good. Still, the show keeps ticking along, eh?
Well, unless something's done, it's heading for big trouble.
Oh, really?
Fortunately, though, I have a solution.
Oh, what, you want to press the button today?
If you think I'm bluffing, you try me.
No, I certainly wouldn't think that. By all means, please, show me how it's done.
I didn't come here to bargain.
And if you or anybody thinks you can do a better job than me, you are very welcome to take over.
I don't think it's doing anything for you. I know it's not doing anything for me.
Funny that. Right, let's see what we have today. Okay.
The series.
Well, it's a series we've not seen for a while, actually. It's Fireball XL5, and the episode is Ghosts of Space.
You have seen it, of course.
Well, yes, but not for a very long time. Not since the VHS days, in fact, so we might just have a problem here.
You're the one with the problem.
Oh, really?
Bad scripts.
Well, now, Fireball XL5 wasn't always the best written series, but I think I have a fair idea of what we're in store for today.
I'm not sure you do.
Well then, let's all find out together, shall we? So, welcome back to Fireball XL5 on the Randomiser. We haven't been here since November, I believe, with Dangerous Cargo, and curiously enough, we're opening in a similar way to that episode. Rather than an abandoned mining complex, we're in what looks like an abandoned town. All spooky as we get our title there and some eerie music. Yep, looks like a typical Wild West frontier town, but long since deserted. And here's good old XL5 carrying a special guest to the planet.
Fireball Jr. to Professor Maddock. Nose cone disconnected. On our way down to planet Electron.
Roger, Steve. You haven't got long, Steve. Remember, we're way behind schedule.
I'm sorry I won't have time to introduce you to the people of Electron, Fraser, but you just mentioned my name.
Well, what time?
Wow, that's arrogance and a half. That just say you know me and everything will be fine. Wow.
They sure are hospitable.
I'm sure I'll get on fine with him, Colonel Zodiac.
Yes, this is a geologist named Fraser. Because, as I mentioned last week, I believe we had a character named Fraser in Supercar, and I'm sure Fraser is the most common name in all the Gerry Anderson shows. I mean, we had one last week, we've got one this week. We had regular Frasers in
on the other side of the hills.
In Captain Scarlet and UFO and Space 1999.
I'll give the Electrons your regards. Let's see, I've got all my survey equipment. Well, guess I'm ready.
Okay, that was a thorough check there. You forgot your underpants. Oh, well, never mind. Yep, Fraser's leaving Fireball Jr. Yeah, I don't know what it is about the name Fraser.
Fraser has disembarked, Matt.
But these Anderson shows just loved the name. I mean, you even have multiple Frasers within the same show. I mean, look at UFO. You have Dr. Fraser in 4 episodes. You have a Joe Fraser and a Catherine Fraser.
Yes, the Electrons are real friendly people.
It's odd, and I don't think it can be a conscious decision because it's so many different writers working over such a long period of time. But there we go. Strange little fact there.
Hello? Anyone about?
It's Fraser. Yeah, I know that doesn't narrow it down. This is a nice model shot of Fraser on his jetmobile.
It's okay, I'm a friend.
Cruising up the streets of Electron.
Strange. The place seems deserted.
Yeah, all these friendly people. No one's around. It's covered in cobwebs.
This room hasn't been used in weeks. And the meal, it's been left unfinished.
Oh, spider. Big old spider.
As though they left in a hurry. Something sure must have scared them. Who's there? Hey, watch it, Fraser. You're getting jumpy. It was only the wind. The wind slammed the door.
Yeah. Nothing to worry about.
Now, let's see. Where can I stay? Steve said something about a hotel on the edge of the town. Well, I'll try that first.
Well, you've got literally the entire town to examine. I'm trying to make out what the words say.
Well,
on some of these signs around the town.
Let's hope they got in a good supply of food before they took off.
I don't care what happened to them, just as long as they can feed me. There's a pot. Beans.
Gee, Gee, I'm in luck. Oh,
Beans, cornflakes, rice, corned beef.
I'll check the bedrooms.
Well, he's all set anyway, nicely stocked larder. And this is something I find XL5 does very well as atmospheric stuff. Oh, the larder doors closed by themselves there. Yeah, I don't know, I assume part of it is the fact that it's in black and white, but it does lend the show a sort of nightmarish air at times like this.
Planet Electron.
Yeah, it could be, Steve. But it's my guess that the people of Electron are giving a party in his honor.
Is it Electon or Electron? Well, sounds like they're saying Electon. I thought they were saying Electron at first.
Yeah, I reckon I'll sleep here, okay? Say, that light, it seems to be coming from that rock.
Ooh, glowing rock in the bedroom.
Electric rock. Boy, what a discovery. Must be how they light their homes. Well, I'll guess I'll have a meal and turn in. I want to make an early start tomorrow. Could be there's a lot more of this stuff around.
Yeah, but you can't really claim to discover it if Steve's been there before. You're not really the first Earthman to set foot on this planet, are you? Unless it's just the legend of Steve Zodiac is what makes him think they're all going to worship him. Oh, so Fraser had a little kip. But, he doesn't seem to have slept for long. Got himself a pickaxe, and he's off to work.
Well, it looks as if there's plenty of this electric rock around. Gee, now this stuff would be worth a fortune back on Earth. There's tons of it here, just waiting to be dug out. I'll start right away. Take back some samples.
I'll start right away after I'm done starting already. Oh my goodness, he's carved out a whole pile of rocks. And this music is very good at establishing his descent into madness, as is...
Digging has got me quite a pile of this stuff. Oh, I'll be rich! I'll be rich!
The addition of the facial hair that he didn't have before. Suddenly he's got a moustache and beard, so Lord knows how long he's been doing this.
But that's all. The rest is mine. All mine!
Oh.
Hey, I found some exploding rock!
Yay!
Oh, and boy, is that gonna help me dig out this electric ore? Well, I can work 10 times as fast!
Yeah, if he uses the exploding rock tube... Oh dear. Yeah, he's gone completely bananas. And it's very well done, actually, his descent into madness, both with the way the puppet is altered throughout the episode and John Bluthal's performance. Oh, leprechauns.
Planet Electron to get our supply of the electric rock.
Do you think the inhabitants will have returned to their town?
If they have, we will be forced to use the same methods as before to move them away.
But why cannot we talk to the Electrons?
You are so young, Centaur. Someday perhaps you will learn that we Groverians must accept our shyness. The Electrons are much bigger than us.
Groverians?
They could harm us, and we have no weapons.
I'm going to continue calling you space leprechauns because that's how you're dressed.
He must be right. Perhaps when I am older, I will have as much wisdom.
Hurry, Centaur. I am switching on the magnets that will pull us to planet Electron.
Yeah, okay, whatever. There's some mighty noses on these two space leprechaun guest puppets. Oh, they're flying off in a sort of supercar-type vehicle. Off to planet Electron.
How fast we travel, Centaur. All I do is increase the power of the magnets in the front of the craft, and we are pulled by magnetism faster towards our destination.
Thank you for explaining that. Oh, some nice jaunty music here. Now, this episode was actually not shown in the UK when Fireball XL5 was first aired. It was held back to the end, to the end of a repeat run of the whole series, and then this was one of 4 episodes that hadn't been shown the first time around that ended the run. It was this and Hypnotic Sphere, Sabotage, and Space Magnet. This opened. This was the first of the 4.
Bombs away!
Oh my goodness! First of the 4 unaired episodes that got shown. I don't know why they held those 4 back.
What does this mean?
None of them are particularly standout examples of the series, so maybe somebody felt less than proud of them.
Very carefully.
Oh, that's sweet. A little minifigure of Fraser working on the model set.
He is from another planet. We are lucky our landing was silent. He does not know we are here.
So the space leprechauns have found Fraser, working at his huge pile of rocks.
The very thing we have come for.
We must stop him. But how?
We will use the same methods as we employed to get rid of the electrons from the town.
Your pointy nose.
Will be as effective.
Oh, so the leprechauns are why...
He's alone.
Why there's nobody left in the town. Fraser, meanwhile, looks like he's... I don't know.
Well, XL5.
He's been smoking in bed.
Hey, supposing it's behind schedule. Oh, no. No, it mustn't be. It mustn't be.
Here they come. Having done whatever it was they said they needed to do.
Electron, Steve.
Roger, Venus. We're ready to disconnect nose cone.
Okay, Steve. Robert's in central control.
And I'm holding Zuni's hand for some unknown reason. And down they go.
Hey, what's that I hear? Is it a spaceship? Oh, I hope I'm not imagining it. A spaceship? That means more of the big men are coming.
There was an odd shot of the leprechauns there. They were kneeling down, but for a moment it didn't look like they had any legs. Oh dear. Now they're standing up again.
Land, you big people. But when we have finished with you, you'll wish you'd never seen Electron.
Oh no. Not the fury of the space leprechauns. Are these leprechauns actually smaller than the regular human characters? We haven't seen them alongside each other yet.
How you been? Say, you're looking a little rough. Anything wrong?
A little?
You're sick. What's happened?
Oh, never mind that now. I'm okay. But I've made a fantastic discovery. Electric rock. There it is. Right over there. Now, if you boys will just help me load these rocks into your ship, we can lift off right away.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Hold on, Fraser. We're not taking that pile of rocks back to Earth.
No, sir. We'd never get off the ground.
Well, I'm not leaving here without it. It's going to make me a pile of dough. I've worked for 3 months to get that.
Oh, 3 months. Wow.
Out of the profit, Zodiac.
That explains the beard and,
Just let's get it back to Earth.
well, everything really.
Nothing doing, Fraser. I'll take a sample piece, but that's all.
Okay. You've got till the morning to think it over. But I'm warning you, Zodiac. I mean business.
Oh dear. Well, it's another stable member of the World Space Patrol we've encountered here. Although maybe he doesn't work for the World Space Patrol. Maybe he's a sort of freelance geologist.
Steve, I'm worried about Fraser. He's a sick man. Being all this time alone has affected him badly. He's suffering from a form of space melancholia.
Well, remember, we're not exactly pictures of mental health ourselves, Venus.
But he may need special treatment.
Yeah, but meanwhile, he's got this idea in his head about these rocks. He's got rocks in his head, all right.
Oh, Matt made a joke.
Zuni's very restless, Steve. I think he senses someone outside.
Oh, he must be wrong. This is nothing but a ghost town.
Steve, don't say that. I'm scared enough already.
Oh, right.
Soon we will go to work.
We're going to do the whole ghosts thing for a while, are we?
Yes, Hala, your plan is a good one. Let us hope it will work as it did with the electrons.
Electons. They're definitely saying
Now
electon.
come along,
Okay.
Zuni. We are all going to bed. Come and try out the nice basket Steve found for you.
Yeah, it actually seems to be the only piece of, or the only item in the room that doesn't have cobwebs all over it. Cobwebs and dust. It actually looks quite nice. Poor Zuni. Oh, he tried to get in the bed, and it moved out from under him. Needless to say, this is not going down well with Zuni. Oh, and again. Oh, I know he's a nuisance, but he was trying to do as he was told. It's not his fault. Oh, that's okay. He sat in in what looks like an old antique chair. That's not going to move. Okay. I'm wondering, actually, if any of these exterior buildings along the main street and the windows and such, if any of this is reused from Four Feather Falls. These storefronts. Could be. So now everyone's gone to bed. Oh, Venus is having her duvet lifted off the bed. These sinister forces.
What's happening to the covers? What's going on? And that strange noise. What is it?
Oh, there's a vase flying now. Up and then down.
Oh, I'm scared. I'm going to see Steve.
Steve, who's sleeping right through it.
Steve, are you asleep?
Oh, Venus. What's wrong?
Steve, there are strange things going on in this house. I think it's haunted.
Oh, Venus. Now, you know better than that. You're having a nightmare, that's all.
Oh, even Steve's had enough of Venus by this point.
I haven't been dreaming.
Oh, go back to bed, Venus. You're tired out. I'll get some sleep.
Oh, well, maybe you're right, Steve. Good night.
Yeah.
I am a woman after all, a silly tooty woman. There's some unusual music in this one, that much of which doesn't seem to have been released on soundtrack albums at any point.
Enough reading for tonight.
Matt's taking his glasses off. Oh, and there they go. That's a reaction and a half.
Mighty funny going on here. I'll have a word with Steve.
Yeah, that's right. You have a word about the ghosts. Yep, now he's going to go and annoy Steve.
Whoa! Yeah, where's that noise coming from?
Puppet got some cobwebs caught on his arm there.
Steve, wake up!
What's that?
Steve! I reckon this hotel is haunted.
Oh, no, not you, too. Venus was in here just now with the same story. Now, will you please go back to bed and let me get some sleep?
Yay! Steve Zodiac, daring adventurer, just wants some sleep.
Someone's prowling around.
Could it be...
He's going down the stairs.
Matt? I'm gonna guess it's Matt.
I must look. I've got to find out what's going on. Oh, if only I wasn't so scared.
If only I wasn't such a tooty woman.
I didn't imagine that. The front door definitely closed. But Steve will never believe me.
It's so fantastical a story. Oh, so, what is it now the next morning?
We've covered every inch of the place and found nothing.
Suddenly, I believe you guys.
Disappeared, Steve.
Well, it's dawn now. Let's get dressed. We've got to find Fraser and talk him out of this crazy scheme.
I like that Zuni is still asleep in his chair that he found. He's been all right.
Fraser! We're leaving in Fireball Jr. You've got 10 minutes before liftoff.
Oh, he's still lobbing exploding rocks at them.
You're not leaving this planet until my electric rock is loaded aboard.
Now be sensible, Fraser. Come down and get into the ship.
Steve!
Oh.
Now, don't worry, I'm okay, Venus. I'm just faking. You and Matt drag me back behind those rocks.
And I'll have another little sleep.
That'll show you I'm not bluffing.
Oh, great. Now keep him talking, Matt. I'll try to creep up behind him. I can use these rocks for cover.
Okay, Steve, but be careful. That explosive rock is deadly.
And that's why it hasn't killed anyone who's come into contact with it. Oh.
Steve Zodiac is hurt bad, Fraser. He needs real urgent attention.
First, you will load my electric rock, then you can see to him.
You can't do this, Fraser. Put that catapult down. We gotta help Steve.
Nothing doing, Professor. Just start loading up my electric rock.
Now, see here, Fraser.
Yep, Steve's nearly made it.
You know we can't take that rock.
Get moving to the rock pile, Professor. Then we'll take care of Zodiac.
Oh, Steve knocked a rock.
I might have guessed you'd be up to something, Zodiac. Creeping up on a guy like that.
Put that catapult down or I'll fire.
If you do, Zodiac, I'll fall under this explosive rock and it'll be curtains for all of us.
We had one go off on your face earlier and you were fine.
Okay, Fraser. I guess you're calling a tune.
I don't think I like you, Zodiac. Guess I'll take care of you anyway.
Oh, for Pete's sake, you don't realize what you're doing.
Save it, Zodiac.
I mean, even if this guy isn't a member of the World Space Patrol, they really should do better background checks on their people. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the space leprechauns arrived in their little flying car and they've hooked Fraser using their magnet. They've dragged him over to Fireball Jr. and dropped him. And landed beside him. And it's actually quite a nifty little vehicle. It is very reminiscent of Supercar.
We helped the one called Zodiac because you tried to save the electric rock.
I don't know who you are, but I'd sure like to thank you.
I'll get Fraser in a Fireball Jr., Steve, while he's still groggy.
Okay, Matt. Now, meanwhile, maybe you two would tell me what this is all about.
We come from planet Groveris, the next planet to Electron.
Was it you who scared the Electrons from their town?
That is correct. You see, we are timid people. We thought the Electrons would prevent us from getting the electric rock.
But the Electrons are friendly. All you needed to do was to ask them for some rock. There's enough for both of you. But what about the transport costs?
It is easy for us.
Yeah, what about the transport cost? That's a very important point.
Our magnets to transport it.
Ah, magnets.
Our magnets can do almost anything.
Didn't you notice something strange last night?
Oh, of course. The haunted house business. So it was you who rigged up that spook act. All done with magnets, eh?
Yes. I'll show you.
Oh, more important, you'd better get in touch with the Electrons and apologize. I guess they're on another part of the planet.
Yes.
No, they're dead. We killed them all, drove them off a cliff, in fact. We're very timid creatures. Ah, he's put up a welcome home banner on the main street. That's nice. From Steve Zodiac, so they know it's him.
Well, it won't be long now before this place is full of happy people again, Venus.
Building a statue in honor of me.
I have gone to collect the Electrons.
Pity we can't stay for the homecoming. But duty calls. That's the Space Patrol for you. Always on the move. Come on, Venus, let's go.
Okay. Well, it's a nice note to end on. Oh, especially that lovely shot of Fireball Jr. cruising over the town, but, are the people, are the space leprechauns going to be allowed access to the glowing rocks from the people of Electon or Electron? We never know. Steve just says, oh yeah, probably it'll be fine, but we don't get to find out. So that was Ghosts of Space, and well, I can kind of see why this one was held back to be shown much later in the run, because it's not the greatest. There's some really nice atmospheric stuff here, as there often is with XL5. But there is also a lot of very silly stuff here. I mean, Fraser's descent into madness is a lovely bit of character stuff and performance from John Bluthal, but it's so sudden and it just makes you wonder what's up with this guy. Meanwhile, space leprechauns, I mean, really, they don't have the Irish accent, but they are space leprechauns. So yeah, even for Fireball XL5, space leprechauns and ghosts, it's a bit of a silly one all round, really.
What a catchy outro tune for XL5. I can't almost not help myself, but want to go and sing it now. I won't, don't worry.
Yeah. No, thank goodness for that. Aren't we lucky to have such a long legacy of shows to watch and enjoy? So when was that episode? Ghosts of Space, XL5. When was
63?
that? I mean, right, okay. So that's almost 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost 60 years ago. And we're still able to watch and enjoy it now.
I mean, imagine if we were trying to do a podcast just based around a single series like Twizzle, where there's only one episode remaining. I mean,
right.
I don't think the podcast would last 150 episodes if that was the case.
The Twizzle podcast. I bet it would. It's a challenge, isn't it?
All right, fine. Well, next time
you know what?
we'll go for that.
I bet
then.
Toby Hadoke could do it.
Okay, right, there's a collaboration in the making. Let's see what we can do. What do you reckon, Podsterons? Email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk if you'd like to see a Twizzle or hear a Twizzle podcast. I'm not sure it's got legs, but who knows?
No.
Yeah.
Now, over on Twitter, people have been getting very excited about the Eagle Moss Eagles that we mentioned last week in the news. Yes, for example, John tweeted saying, I wish I could afford them, but I still have my 1975 Eagles. Fair enough. Jay says, I wonder if they'll do a special edition one that Commander Koenig stuffed into the surface of a planet. Misha says, have you all considered a flying version? Sneak prop drone tech into the landing leg thrusters.
Yes, I have seen a homemade one on YouTube, actually, that does that, which looks really cool. Yes.
What sort of size? Not what? I mean, it's probably quite big, I would think.
About 18 inches, 20 inches long, something like that.
Have a look at that. Yeah. And... meanwhile, over on our YouTube channel, Ian Dealey commented on last week's podcast, another fab podcast. I'm currently rewatching New Captain Scarlet on Amazon Prime, and Jeremy Hitchin does loads of good voices on that too. Also nice to have Space Precinct back on the Randomiser. John Clay says some content around Into Infinity, the TV special, would be good. I watched it on DVD a few years back, and it featured most of the 1999 crew and cast, and Ed Bishop narrated it.
He did. Yeah. Well, there's a primer on the YouTube channel.
There you go.
But if that was a comment on a fab fact, don't forget the fab facts are random, so we've got no control over what comes out when.
That's true. Keith Gooch says, another great episode of the Gerry Anderson podcast with all the usual banter between Richard and Jamie. Great second part of the interview with Jeremy Hitchin. I had no idea he was behind the Edinburgh Foodie Festival. Great news that Richard James has novelised 5 Star 5 and Robbie Stevens has done an audiobook of it. I will be ordering the CD and book on Wednesday. Chris Dale's Randomiser review of the Space Precinct episode The Power was interesting, if short of laughs this week. Have to agree with Chris that the dubbed voices that ruined several episodes of this series certainly ruined this story. Poor Alison Fielding, another career ended by Space Precinct. What? Another career? What's he mean?
No idea.
What's he trying to say?
No comment.
Eh? Oh, I'm Olivier nominated, I'll have you know.
That is true.
I mean, not me personally. But
yeah, you were.
A show I was in.
Yeah, you were.
He says, keep up the good work. And that's from Keith Gooch. Thanks for all your lovely comments. Don't forget you can hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast. Tag me, I'm Jamie Anderson. Him over there, Richard N. James. And him just sneaking out the door like we can't see him, Chris Darling.
Yes, yeah, that's almost correct, wasn't it? But I'm glad you just carried on regardless.
Think I got away with it.
Yeah, nobody will notice anyway. Right, well, that's probably it then for Pod 153, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
I've got a strange feeling that next week will be Pod 154.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
shake it up a bit.
Trying to shake things up. So yeah, I think we'll do that pretty nicely.
All right.
So, Podsteron will be in your ears next week for Pod 154. Prepare to be surprised by that. And can you prepare to be surprised? Probably not. We better go. I'm going. Are you going, Richard James?
Okay. I might as well, yeah.
Okay, we're going now. Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Well, I forgot that we did that 6 Degrees of Gerry Anderson thing last week, and
yes,
and
had any in yet?
No, not one.
Thunderbird 2 post-it notes, really?
Yeah. So,
it's Phil Steer all over again, isn't it? He'll be complaining now. Where are the messages about the 6 Degrees of Anderson? Well,
you're absolutely right. Well, yeah, thank goodness we've got this special Phil Steer themed extension of the podcast to discuss matters such as these.
Now, Jamie, you've had all week, haven't you? Have you found, as I requested last week, the very first review left for the Gerry Anderson podcast?
Well, Richard James, you are very lucky in that I have found that review.
Have you? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's from RNJ.
RNJ, right, yes.
And it says...
Yes.
Sounds all right. Jamie annoying. Chris Dale okay, but that Richard James bloke is a legend.
Wow, isn't that lovely? Isn't that nice?
I mean, it's not so great for me. It's all right for Chris, but it's pretty good for you. But
it's you know, we asked
the person that's left it. I'm a bit suspicious.
RNJ. Ronald Nigel Jiminy's. That's Ronald Nigel. Big fan of ours, I think.
Doesn't it?
Right? Oh, right. Anyway, well, that's it for now. I've got to go, and I'll see you next week. Yeah? Okay. All right, bye. Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.